Can you explain that further? I mean, like, it is pretty amazing that we have these dinosaurs in our history of our
Yes.
planet. That is so extraordinary.
In the history that you're creating from your present.
So this change in our history, what level of vibration would our civilization need to be at to have a completely different version of Earth that didn't have dinosaurs?
Or had different kinds of animals that weren't necessarily exhibiting or reflecting the idea of predation in the way that you experience a day, would be above 200,000 cycles per second in your overall frequency.
And what percentage of our planet population is at that frequency level presently, would you say?
Less than 2%.
And on balance, then the population is functioning at what?
You want an average for the entire collective of your planet?
Yes.
Somewhere around 60 to 70,000 cycles per second.
Okay. And so will contact be limited to people who are functioning over 200,000 cycles per second, or just in the initial stages, those individuals would perhaps have contact first?
It might be that they will experience certain kinds of contact before others, but that can help others raise their vibration, knowing that that's going on as well. It doesn't have to be exactly 200,000 for there to be some form of open contact. And again, remember, it depends on what you're having contact with. But the idea is it can start somewhere around 150 to 160,000 cycles per second, minimally, slowly, and it can build. What we are talking about is that above 200,000 cycles per second, there would be something considered to be normal, constant, open contact.
And so for an individual to have contact with you, what kind of frequency level would they need to have in order to have a good experience?
At this particular point, again, definitely above 200,000 cycles per second, probably closer to 215,000 cycles. At this point.
And would one of the key things of individuals functioning in that level is that they are genuinely able to stay in a positive state no matter what they encounter?
Yes, because choosing anything else simply doesn't make sense to a being operating on that level.
And their consciousness would be much more clear in terms of all of their, or most of their beliefs, or important beliefs.
Let me put it to you in an extremely overly simplistic kind of way. Would you be willing right now to punch yourself in the face as hard as you can? Yes or no?
No.
Well, it would be that kind of an obvious choice to those operating above 200,000 cycles per second that they simply wouldn't choose something that doesn't make sense for them, that they don't prefer. It's simply not on the list of choices. Yes, they know it's always a possibility, but the probability is so low that they simply would not choose it in a practical day-to-day sense. Just like you would not choose to punch yourself in the face.
So part of our challenge is to let go of the ideas of self-recrimination and guilt, I suppose.
Yes.
The ideas of what it truly means to be spiritual.
To be a spirit. To be a spirit, not spiritual, to be a spirit in physical terms.
And what kinds of emotions would that eliminate?
You would no longer choose to feel the idea of fear or sadness in that sense, or anger or hate. Those kinds of things simply wouldn't make sense to a being operating on that level. Again, in much the same way that you have chosen not to punch yourself in the face. It would be that visceral of a choice. It would not feel correct. It would feel damaging as physically punching yourself, to choose the idea of hate and sorrow and sadness and fear, so on and so forth.
And on this level, we are actually able to tolerate huge amounts of dissonance and seeing things on television that are violent or unpleasant, and not feel what we would feel if we were above 200,000 cycles per second, when we would immediately disconnect from that kind of input, I
You
suppose.
would either disconnect from the input or you would know how to use it to positive effect.
So that's the other piece. If you are going to see it, then you know how to use it to get a positive effect.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes.
So what about the idea that of false accusation? You know how you were saying that if someone judges you, then, you know, if you didn't believe it was true on some level, you wouldn't react to it.
Yes, if you are doing it out of the idea of teaching lessons to other people about those things and how to be more discerning about what is and is not true, then you can remain relatively neutral, knowing that you have made a choice to attract such a thing into your life as a lesson for others to learn.
Wow. Wow. And if you ask for help, will you always receive guidance, or are there circumstances where help won't be given? And what would those circumstances be?
There are no such circumstances. Help is always given, but as we have said, you have to learn to pay attention to it and not insist that it must come in a certain form, because it may be being given to you, but you may be insisting that it should come some other way and therefore not recognizing the help that you're actually getting. So it's never that you are not given help. You are being given all the help and assistance you can possibly be given all the time. It's just that you haven't necessarily been taught to pay attention to that because of the belief systems within you.
I think there's some stories about those ideas of God sending help and the individual not recognizing that
Correct.
it's coming from God and thinking it has to look a certain way for it
Yes.
to be coming
Yes.
from God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So help is never denied, ever.
And let's see. If our soul group agrees, can we incarnate as another ET race on another planet or a ship?
Sure, why not?
So is there such a thing as our soul group? What is our soul group?
Your soul family, or those that you deem are exploring a certain theme together. You can decide to do that as a group.
Does that mean that with each life that you experience yourself as, you have a different soul family?
Could be so. Just depends on the themes you're exploring. Now, you might generally keep a lot of them because souls are very flexible and willing to explore a lot of different things. So, euphemistically, it might be the same soul family who are willing to explore different themes together. Just like you decide as a group of friends or family to go on vacation one time to this place and the next to another place. You can still be the so-called same soul family, but you can be agreeing to have different experiences together.
So you've talked a lot about how it's important to take action in order to ground the energy of your passion.
And also to respond properly to the higher mind that sent you the passion to begin with.
So in the case of someone like Buddha, where there was the idea of travels and many journeys within, how
Yes.
do the journeys within fit into what you're describing because of, you know, the insights that people get and all of that kind of?
No matter how many journeys you may take within, remember that the Buddha also expressed the spiritual nature of chopping wood and carrying water, which are physical actions. In other words, don't necessarily segregate the idea of your actions in physical reality as being any less spiritual than the inner journeys you may take. It's always an opportunity to have an outward expression and an outward example of the inner journeys you may take so that others may see through your example in the actions that you take the beauty and information you have discovered from your journeys within, because you can be inspiring to others with your behavior outwardly, your actions outwardly, based on the journeys you have discovered within.
So it's actually not this or that, it's this and that.
Exactly so.
Okay. Um, and then as far as shifting to different realities,
which you are doing all the time.
right. What does the mechanism of that feel and look like, that shifting?
Well, you're doing it all the time. So what does it feel and look like? It looks like time. It looks like change. It looks like motion. It looks like space. The idea is it's so natural to you, you don't even know you're doing it. So the idea is it really doesn't feel anything like what you would imagine unless you decide to make a larger continuity shift and let go of some of the so-called frames in between one and another that you would normally experience and be capable of consciously recognizing that you're shifting all the time. And then it might feel like elation, it might feel like disorientation, it might feel like a number of different things. But the idea is that you're doing it all the time. And in the natural sense of the agreement you have made to do it all the time with many others, what does it feel like? Doesn't feel like anything at all because it's natural. As I said, you only really feel the difference when you make a larger change, a larger shift that is a breaking of continuity.
So that's like teleporting almost.
Yes, it is exactly that. Because what you're doing all the time is teleporting from one reality to another. Billions of times per second. It's just that when you teleport or shift to something less expected, based on your understanding of what's expected, of your agreement to what's expected, then you notice the difference.
Can you also explain to us what it means to shift to fourth density and fifth density? Well, no, it's saying to shift to fourth density and fifth dimension. So I'm not sure what.
All right, all right. Fifth dimension is non-physical. It means you're going back into spirit, so to speak, to put it linearly. Fourth density is a physical reality, just a higher vibratory one. And then if you decide to go into spirit, you've gone to not only fifth density, but the fifth dimension. Because again, that's the border between physical and non-physical reality. So fourth density may draw upon fifth dimensional energies, but you're not actually experiencing yourself in the fifth dimension until you're in spirit.
So when you're non-physical, you can still have a linear experience, right?
You can create a linear experience. Yes, you can create that. It's just that time is more malleable and flexible. So you can create whatever you want and experience it sort of linearly, or you can instantaneously experience something because time is not the same kind of factor in spirit that it is in physical reality. In fact, the idea of time is one of the very definitions of physical reality that you impose upon yourself. By shifting to billions of different realities from a particular perspective, you create this side effect, this illusion of time in a linear way. But in spirit, there's no need to do that, but you can do that.
So like for an individual such as yourself that is quasi-physical,
Yes.
is there this huge demarcation that happens when you become fully non-physical as a spirit and experience other levels of yourself going forward? Because you can still have a linear progression of fifth and sixth and seventh.
Yes. But again, it's experienced very differently in the spirit world. But yes, the demarcation can be quite different, as most people who have near-death experiences describe. Suddenly, you are filled with unconditional love. You understand and know what your life is all about and what you chose. You remember completely and utterly who you are in that sense.
It's a lot to look forward to.
Well, yes, but not meaning to run away from physical reality.
Right. Because we get that theme a lot too, is that the desire to get out of physical reality because it's hard to accept things that are negative, predatory environment, all of these kinds of things.
Yes, but that's a misunderstanding. It's not about getting out of physical reality. It's about allowing you to know you are creating the experience in physical reality so that you can experience your control of what you're creating while physical, knowing that physical reality is an expression of spirit. It's not about getting out of it. It's about rendering physical reality more spiritually.
That's amazing. And the training ground for that is being able to stay in a positive state no matter what you experience, and
Yes.
not letting expectation of how it's supposed to be control the way that you respond to it.
Correct.
All of these kinds of things that you've expressed in the formula.
Yes. So this is a misunderstanding many people on your planet have about the idea of leaving physical reality, getting out of or overcoming physical reality. No. What you need to do is create physical reality in a more spiritual way so that there is less difference between the two.
It's very powerful.
Yes.
This person was saying they were reading a book about angels, and one day rare things happened. When I opened a new chapter and read the title of that chapter, suddenly I felt a gentle breeze. A story came into my head, and I later realized that the story that came into my head was in that chapter. What happened to that person?
You opened up to a higher level of your being, a higher level of your consciousness, saw the template you had laid down for about to read that story. You, in a sense, sensed what it was about ahead of time, so to speak, by tapping into the template you had created in non-physical reality to gain a glimpse of the so-called future, or again, a parallel present. And you had assistance and a greeting from higher level beings, not only your own higher mind, but spirit guides and other beings as well, that reinforce the idea with that so-called gentle breeze that you were in the correct state of being to be able to expand your consciousness and see what you had laid out for yourself.